Right about now.
Right about now.
You're about to witness
The Funk Soul Brother.
Jonathan Small.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Right About Now podcast. This is John Small. All right. What if I told you that we spend most of our days in autopilot? Basically, our brains are using half of their potential, and generally, we are just responding to crisis after crisis. Our sympathetic nervous system kicks in. We go into fight or flight mode. As a result, we are not really actively protecting or regulating our brain's energy to be happier, to be more productive. Well, that is the thesis behind the work of my guest, Deb Smolensky. Deb is a brain trainer and author of the book Brain On: Mental Fitness Strategies for Sharpening Focus, Boosting Energy, and Winning the Workday. And she combines neuroscience with anecdotal evidence from her coaching business to help people upgrade their brain power. She says she had this aha moment when she realized that our brains are actually hardwired for the caveman era. So we're pretty much in need of a serious overhaul for the 21st century. Well, how do we get there? That's what this interview is all about. Deb and I talk about various techniques for getting out of that caveman-ish fight or flight mode where the amygdala just sort of rules the day, and how to allow your thinking brain to be focused and moving towards your goals. And she lays out various strategies and tips and tricks and hacks to do that. I found this really interesting, especially given the day I was having, in which I was just responding at the moment to Facebook, basically shutting me out of my page because it was hacked, and then having all these technical difficulties with our interview at first, to the point where I was ready to throw myself against a wall. And then in the middle of our interview, and I cut this part out because it was so loud, a huge fire alarm goes off and just sends us into a total panic. So this was all happening in real time. All these crises were presenting themselves to me, and Deb was kind of nice enough to be patient with me and to help me through a rather tumultuous, annoying day. Really enjoyed this conversation, excited to share it with you. So without further ado, I bring you Deb Smolensky. Deb Smolensky, welcome to the Right About Now podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
All right, true confession. We already started our interview on a different platform. It was a complete technical nightmare. I'm completely stressed out. My brain is going nuts. And so I think I probably have the right guest on right now to help calm me down a little bit. This is also, my day is not going so well. This comes on the heels of me just finding out that I'm locked out of my Facebook account and have been trying to get back on. If you get hacked on Facebook, there's absolutely nothing that Facebook can do to help you. Like they don't have customer service. They anyway. So my brain is going crazy. What do I do, Deb?
We call that brain off, right? Your fear brain is just taken over. Your thinking brain is just checked out. It has no chance to come to the surface right now, John. Okay. So we're just going to pause. But this is a great introduction. Like, this is what happens in life. This is why I wrote the book.
Exactly. So that's a great way to cue up my first question is, why did you write this book?
Yes. And we've just lived kind of through that. But right. Actually, the book has been in me for a long time. And in my job for the last 20 years, let's say, as a well-being professional working with large corporations, small corporations, the number one question I've gotten constantly is, Deb, why am I so stressed out at work? Or, Deb, why are my employees so stressed out at work? And the answer is so simple. It's just we've never been taught about it. So that is why I wrote the book. I am hoping to upskill our brains for the 21st century and beyond.
It's time for our brains to get a checkup and also get an upgrade. Okay, yes. But you said the answer is so simple. So tell me the simple answer of why we are so stressed at work.
We are so stressed at work because our brains are designed to keep us stressed at work. Our brains are programmed for one thing, and that is just to keep us alive. That's it.
It's the flight, or
Fight, flight. You've got it. Like
fawn, fight,
it's
flight.
just right. So if you would do a check-in with your brain at the end of each day, even your day, like right now, like I not got on Facebook, I'm having technical issues. Like this is the worst day. Your brain would say, I deserve a bonus. You're still breathing through all that. Yippee. I kept you alive.
Right.
And I ran the stress response throughout to keep you alive. That's why we're so stressed. It keeps running the fight or flight symptom to keep us alive all day long. That's it. It's not designed to have focus.
Right.
It's not designed to have fun. It's not designed to think of the next question you're going to ask me. You actually have to be in your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, and you have to turn that on. It's a very simple answer that none of us had known before.
That's so interesting. So so the brain's default operating system is flight or fight or fawn. I've heard this. And, as somebody who has anxiety and has been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, this was kind of brought to my attention that, what I'm feeling is the brain's natural response to life. And yet some people seem to be able to manage that better than others. Some people seem to be able to access the thinking brain a little bit more easily. And others of us kind of, like me, sometimes get stuck in the fear brain. Or the fight or flight brain. Pardon me?
I question that.
Question what?
We all have the fear brain response running as a default. So I love that you put let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Everything running is our survival system, our amygdala is on fire, right? And so maybe some people in general handle it better. But I'm taking a look at every workday, and I think we're all the same. I don't think there's one person out there that turns on their computer and if it's a blank screen goes, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Even like the best yogis. Right.
Right. Because that's our default system. Our brain is just meant to keep us alive. So it's just running that response system. I guess the other thing I will totally caveat all day long is I am not a trained psychologist or clinical professional at all. I bow to them every day. I use my own therapist. I love her. The issue is there's clinical, and I see, doctors for the clinical, the anxiety, the depression, the PTSD, the SUD, you name it, that's clinical and needs a lot of care. But 100% of us are stuck with an archaic brain that triggers us and is running that default system so that when we get an email, we don't go, oh, you want me to do this in a half an hour? And we're brain on. No, our primal system is like, are you crazy? Why? We're all going through that. Maybe they handle certain situations better. And that is true. I call that being mentally stronger, right? They practice these skills. We're talking about skills training.
Hey, everybody, it's John. One way I do use my time constructively is drinking AG1. I started drinking AG1 last year and I have not stopped. I drink it every single day. That's because it is a foundational nutritional supplement. Supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, immune support, and it just makes me feel a lot more energetic during the day. There's a reason people like Tim Ferriss and Dr. Huberman recommend this product. They have done their biohacking and they realize that this is a really good integral part of staying healthy every day. So what does it mean when you say to turn your brain on? Because it seems like it's on all the time. Like it's just always chatting. It's constantly having conversations with me. It's telling me things all day long. I'm constantly having a conversation with it. It's not always the best company, I must say. Really very annoying, my brain. So what does it mean when you say the brain is on?
Yeah, so you're the third person in my 6 months of rolling this book out. saying, can you already write the, sequel to being brain off?
Yeah, I want to turn it off. I hate it.
I know. So that exact thing is your brain. I've labeled the thinking brain, right? Our prefrontal cortex, how we show up in the world to do everything, communicate, learn, engage in conversation, memorize, whatever. It's our thinking brain. It's our prefrontal cortex. That has to be turned on because, as you said, our default system is our survival brain, our autopilot. We're brain off automatically. So when that itty shitty bitty community, excuse me, my first swearing, talks to you with these nasty thoughts, I'm not good enough, can I do this? Like anger, fight, flee. That is just because your brain is off.
Yeah.
And you have to pause it and say, I am not listening to that story, and becoming brain on, which we can talk about how to do that. But that's why I labeled it. We have to now turn our brains on to engage and turn off the brain off part of it. Okay. Because only one part can be on at the same time. That's the key.
Interesting. Yeah. So when you're in that fight or flight state, you're not really thinking. You're not.
Exactly. Right, because it's just meant for a quick reaction, save you from that dinosaur. It's not meant to think, should I run? Should I not? No, but we're in that state all the time. So we are not our best selves. We are really not thinking. We have to turn our brain on, our thinking brain on. It's like, okay, so while you were in the midst of trying to get on Facebook today,
boy, I hope people from Facebook are listening to this and are going to contact me immediately after this podcast.
I hope that too.
but they probably won't.
While you were in that crisis, right? Your brain was like fight. It was mad, right? You couldn't also turn to like your daughter and have a great conversation either at the same time. You can't yell at somebody and also be happy thinking about your vacation at the same time. You have to turn on your thinking brain and stop that old story or that fear brain.
All right. So let's talk about turning on the thinking brain.
Okay.
Sometimes we just do it naturally, right? Like I think when we have to focus, like when I'm writing, I think that I turn on the thinking brain. Am I correct in surmising that?
You turn on your thinking brain. Yes. So in the writing process, which I said to myself over the last 2 years writing the book, that if I wasn't writing a book on mental strength training, I would not have wrote the book. I would have turned it down and said, boom.
Yeah.
But I was constantly practicing when I had writer's block, right? I was afraid, flight. For some reason, words weren't coming to me. I had to do these techniques to get back into present mode. So like in the writing process, there's the creative mode. You have to be creative. You can't be in Facebook mad mode and also put out your best work. So there's different quick exercises to do all of these different things to turn your brains on, but it's pretty simple. And I always start with just awareness, right? This conversation is actually a mental fitness exercises for those that are learning something new, which I hope your audience is.
Yeah.
Because these are great questions and really helping us to kind of flush this out. So even by asking a question, your brain like pays attention. Attention is your prefrontal cortex, right? So you could be in a meeting and you might be zoning out, right? That's not listening. Your fear brain's looking around, scanning around. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. But when you say, hey, what do you mean by this? Your brain turns on and you're engaged in a conversation. So there's two big things. You can do a check-in to see when you're brain off or brain on. And most times, 99% of the time, you'll be brain off. And you can also do breathing exercises in the moment that you can't even tell you're doing at work.
So let's talk about the first thing that you just mentioned, doing the exercises to check if you're brain on and brain off. One of the things you bring up in the book, and it's something that actually I was aware of, you had cited, well, I'm going to talk about RAIN, RAIN.
Yeah.
The first time I came across this concept was actually with Judson Brewer, who wrote a book called Unwinding Anxiety. Do you know him?
Yes, love Judson.
He's great. Yeah, and I've had him on the podcast. I found that very helpful. I think you said you found rain from a different person. It's not like anybody invented it. It's probably been around forever.
Yeah, right. So let's give my credit to Tara Brach.
Yeah,
That's
Tara Brach,
right.
who you gave credit to Tara Brach, who's a wonderful meditation teacher.
Yes.
So, but what is rain? Let's go through rain because I think that's a wonderful practice.
It is a great practice. So you mentioned Judson, you mentioned Tara. I'm a practice leader, right? So I've been going around to conferences just studying everybody. And my superpower is just to put it together in a really easy Cliff Notes version.
Right.
And pick the best of what's helped me and what you can do at work pretty easily. And so rain is one of them. And it actually goes back to the two concepts I mentioned, right? Being aware and then breathing and getting your brain back online. So it rain's an acronym. So the first thing, R stands for just recognize. Oftentimes we don't recognize when we're brain off until it's too late and we're on the couch at 6 o'clock drinking beer, eating our cookies, whatever. I mean, I'm a wellness person and I do the same. It's trying to recognize at every moment what's going on. Are you brain off? Are you fight, angry, fleeing, worried?
Distracted.
Right? So recognizing that and pausing and saying, oh, I see I'm really angry about Facebook today, right? Then this is the hard one, John. Accepting is A. Accepting and acknowledging this is just what is happening. It's not against me. It's just what is.
Without judgment. It's a very kind of yoga thing. Like, don't judge, right?
Yes.
It's just like, okay, I'm freaking out about Facebook, but I'm not a bad person.
Right.
And it's just, this is like the state of the world right now. Yeah.
And what I've adopted in the A, which I absolutely love as my mantra, is acceptance is the key to reducing suffering.
Mm.
You won't stay in that state over and replaying it over. I love A, accepting. And then I stands for investigating because, you know, now that you're aware, you can go back as a private eye and say, well, what happened to put me in the situation? Investigate those feelings. Am I feeling sad or am I feeling angry? Most of us only identify with 6 emotions, yet you would read there's like 2,000 plus emotions. I love How You're Feeling app because there's so many emotions you can pick. What's the difference between fear and anger, right? Sadness and loss. So investigating those. And if you can name that emotion specifically, it kind of releases the power over you. It's just like if somebody would call me D, I might not look in the mall or outside, but if somebody calls me Deb, I have a better chance of turning because I've named it. They're naming me. And so the more we can get emotionally intelligent about our emotions is great.
So I could also be like identify because you're basically identifying the emotion. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I love is people, reading the book, make the exercises your own, right?
Yeah.
And then, well, let me ask you, what do you think of with N? Like,
I know that it's note, like just note that it's happening. I think name it, name like I'm feeling anger. Like, I guess, is that what it is? Like, is that what?
Yeah. Because then you've released the power. It says like, oh, you realize what we're going through here. I don't have to shout it up. I don't have to turn up the volume. It's just a really simple practice. All of these are, but we're so on autopilot all day long with our amygdala firing. We forget to stop.
Yeah, that's a thing that I've been trying to tell myself. And I tell my kids too, because I find, my kids are, well, they're going to be 14 and 18 on Saturday, born on the same day. Crazy.
Wow.
I know. And I see they kind of fly into, panic or, get very angry and they don't, because they're young, they don't really have coping mechanisms yet. And I know that I wasn't taught at a young age sort of how to deal with that stuff. And so I'm trying to help them at a younger age. And one of the things that I say is, hey, take a breath. Like, just like you said to me when I was freaking out about Facebook, like one of the things to do is just like stop, right? And it seems like, and then you do the rain. You could do the rain maybe if you want to do that. Or just the idea of like taking stock on what's happening rather than just immediately responding to the fight or flight. Like, take a breath. That's when you become a rational person. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we got to remember the initial instinct for all 30,000 thoughts coming in our mind is going to go through the threat response primarily first before it's deemed a reward. So you're always going to react. You drop your phone, you're going to hold your breath in an instant, right?
Yep.
You see this all the time. So for kids, like they will respond negatively because their brain's trying to keep them safe from whatever it is. But then we always say, take a breath, but that is the magic thing. I just don't think we tell them or we tell ourselves why the breath is so important. I mean, all of us know this.
Tell why is that breath so important? It has been a lifesaver for me. It really is important. And now I've been, practicing a lot of yoga. So I really am much more aware of how I breathe. But anyway, talk to us about why that's important. Like, why specifically that act?
Yeah, I love your questions, and I love how you're kind of living this and making yourself.
This is why I'm calling you, because my brain is off half the time.
Right. Okay, so right about now, I'm like, okay.
Nice.
I didn't really learn this either for a long time, right? All of these things, we don't put it in together, but basically how I have synthesized it is our breath is our physiological response to flip on our prefrontal cortex and stop the worry, stop the fear brain, because only one part can be on at a time. The fear brain's always running. The breath literally flips the light switch on to come out of that and turn your brain on, think about things more rationally. It truly turns off the sympathetic nervous system and turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest.
Yeah, let's talk about the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems.
Yeah, for me, the sympathetic is your fight or flight, right? The alarm bell, your amygdala goes off. It sends cortisol hormones up and down your sympathetic nervous system saying, run, fight, hide, a dinosaur is coming. The rest and digest, the parasympathetic, is the other side. It's connected to the chemicals, your vagus nerve. It's telling your body to relax. It sends the opposite kind of chemical response to your body. It allows you to calm down. Calm down.
Yep.
And so gratitude keeps your brain on too. It's another mental fitness exercise. Like, thank goodness everything was fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. Gratitude. That's one of those kind of new agey words that I struggle with, but I understand that it's helpful. It must be helpful because it's been very helpful for a lot of people. But, I know that some people that I admire, I've listened to some of their podcasts. They'll say things like they do a gratitude list, like every night before they go to bed. They'll say, like, here are 5 things I'm grateful for. But when you talk about gratitude, is there a practice that you can put in your life that can sort of help you turn your brain on through gratitude?
So, yes, gratitude is another one that switches your fear brain off immediately and puts your, thinking brain, your brain on. Because if you bring to mind your kids for just a second, again, you can't be angry at Facebook in that moment, right? You might have to do it 1,000 times. That's the mental fitness exercises. Journals haven't really worked for me, and that's fine. Most of these practices you can or can't do, and you can adapt them.
Yeah.
What's worked for me is I go through my calendar for the day at the end of the day, and I change the color of one meeting that was really my favorite. And I'm like, oh, that was a great part of my day, even though the rest might have tanked.
Yeah.
It allows me to, for that moment, say, oh, there's little bright spots amongst the chaos. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a muscle and a habit. And you start looking at things a little more on the bright side, or at least you have that light coming through some of the darkness.
Yeah. I mean, we have a tendency to just go negative, right? Like we're very, the idea of misery loves company, the idea that, we sort of thrive on, reading bad news, watching bad news. I don't know what it is about the way humans are wired that attracts us to negativity. Have you had any insights into that?
Well, I've stopped watching the news because the effect of it is our brain can't tell the difference between reality, like as if we're in the show that we're watching, or just sitting back and it's not impacting us. So when I watched the volcanoes and the typhoons in Hawaii, I felt a physical response. I was like, oh my gosh, because that's how our brain thinks. So I, there's some comments and some, I guess, research on news media is very smart. They go straight to how the neuroscience of our brain works. We get addicted to the negative. We want to know what's happening, and they're smart with all the hooks that kind of implement and initiate our FOMO, fear of missing out. There's like a lot of neuroscience behind the media, how our phones are programmed. We've done mental fitness training with our phone. It's just the wrong way. We're trained to we can't be without our phone. That's because there's 20,000 people somewhere programming it for our brain instead of us taking control of our own brain and programming it how we want to live and show up.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding with the phone is it's the constant need for the dopamine hits of, okay, did I miss that? Okay, I'm getting a dopamine hit. I'm looking at that now. Just constantly looking for that dopamine, that shot of dopamine that the phone or whatever can give you. It doesn't
because maybe back in 2001 you got one great email, right? And so it just keeps
just one, and you just want to keep replicating that experience of like scanning through your emails. Like, oh yay! Facebook finally got back to me. They're gonna fix my Facebook account. That would be like a great email. If you're listening, Facebook, I want that email. All right, I want to go back to exercises you can do to wake up your brain. We've talked about a few. What are some of the ones that you like to do?
Well, let's just talk about how I was writing the book, right?
Yeah, that's great. This is a writing podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm not a writer. It was very hard. I knew even from the start in terms of waking up my brain, the book process and the skills you need did not match my strengths. My strengths are I'm a futurist. I'm a big ideator. And going into the details is very hard. In fact, very low on the strengths finder for me from Gallup. So I knew I needed a collaborative writer, first of all, like somebody that's skilled in that so our strengths can match up. But even then, right, on a daily basis, I had to look for inspiration to pump up my brain. So I would watch it's called The Greatest Showman movie. It's about a workplace, right? And that's my work. I want the workplace to just show up and be brain on. And there's an audition by Keala Settle on YouTube. If you search that in The Greatest Showman, that shows what it's like to be at work and have your brain go from off to on and the power of that. I would play that for my own brain so I could see what that's like and get inspiration. So having pictures, having colors just right there in your creative process.
Yeah.
When all else fails during a day and you can't do anything else, that could be you have low energy, right? You didn't sleep well. You're not feeling well. I rest. I go out in nature. Like these are very easy and tactical, but when you put it all together, very powerful. That's why my book is just very practical. I have a walk-up song every time I had to write. Like, what's your walk-up song, John? I love it at the beginning of the podcast.
A walk-up song, like kind of like when you're boxing. Like, is that what you mean? Like oh yeah, like when baseball, like when you're on deck, and they bring on your song. No, I have a lot of those. I'd have to think specifically, but yeah, maybe like a sort of like get you psyched up type of song. Yeah, right. So I would use a walk-up song when I had to write, and then during the day, I would plan in at least breaks every 90 minutes because if you don't, your energy will be zapped. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I know that you mentioned the Pomodoro technique in your book. The Pomodoro technique, for people who don't know, is you said 90 minutes, but I think sometimes the Pomodoro is like 45 minutes, right?
It's 25 minutes, 5 minutes off. Like,
right.
Yes.
It's like 25 minutes, 5 minutes on. You can get an app if you want to do it that way, where it will like say, okay, here are your 25 minutes where you are in deep focus, brain on, and then it gives you like a 5-minute rest. Like, what can you do during that 5 minutes? Like anything? Or don't check your email, right? I mean, I guess you could, but
No, you can't.
No, you can't. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that.
No,
What do you
I
do
love
for the
your
5 minutes? Because
thoughts.
I've
This
never
is
done the
great.
Pomodoro, and I'm going to explain to you why I haven't after you explain to me what the process is. Okay.
Okay. Well, the point is to put a break in your daily schedule, or your brain will just zap out like a phone battery. So Pomodoro is one thing to put the electric charger of your brain into the socket and re-energize.
And what are you doing when you're re-energizing though for the 5 minutes? What are you supposed to do?
So it's very important, because our brains aren't programmed to do this. They're programmed to grab our phone. To have a 1 minute note, a 5 minute note, and a 10-minute note, which has things you can do that last that long that you like to do that are restorative. For 1 minute, I just look out the window and I just like try to find a bird or something if you have a window, right? So your 1 minute is take a drink of water, just focus on the water. Your 5 minutes, what I do is I literally have either pictures of my kids and I just try to remember a vacation spot, or I just try to, I use an app that has a 5 minute, like let's reset, and it's very calming. Or I spend 5 minutes trying not to check my phone and going back to the breath. That's 5 minutes of mental.
Basically you're meditating. I mean, if it's like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Or trying to just notice and bring your attention back. Yes.
You're being mindful. Yes.
Yeah. You do not want to just go to another thing that causes fear, anxiety, stress, more work.
That is no. And then you go back and do it and do it and you keep doing that cycle until you stop. Here's my problem with that cycle. And I want that to work because I love the idea of everything about it. I think you probably found this when you were writing your book. It is so hard as a writer to get into that groove. First of all, it's so hard to write, period. So once you're actually writing and you're in that focused place, you don't really want to stop. Because it's so hard to get back into it. So one of the things that I fear about the Pomodoro is that I'll be in a groove and then like my little buzzer will go off and be like, okay, time to take a 5 minute break. I'll be like, no. I'm like in a roll here. You know, it's like when my wife will sometimes knock on my door when I'm finally writing and say like, hey, John. And I'm like, John. And this is like, you know, I can't, this is why I don't write. This is why it's so hard to work from home, is because people kind of come into your space a lot. But anyway, so how did you deal with that? Like you must have had those moments where you were like 90 minutes in, you were in your groove and you didn't want to take a break. Yeah.
Well, you did a different mental fitness exercise. You noticed that you're in the groove.
Okay.
Right. So you notice.
It's just taking stock. It's okay.
It's taking stock so that, and it might happen. Like, I don't know if you can write for 8 hours or be in flow. I highly doubt you're as productive after 3 hours, but I would work at 3 hours at a time in my most productive state. So if you're going against the water and it's not your productive state, I would say you should take a break.
Yeah.
But if you're truly in flow, you're using your strengths and it's your time of day, right? Or time of night, then go for it. But know that our brain stops working really well after 3 hours. And if you didn't eat, drink, it's going to hit you like you might think you're in flow, but you're not in flow. You're in fizzle. You're just holding on after that. But I agree. Yeah.
You know, people are like, oh, I worked for 12 hours straight. You know, I worked through the night. It's kind of bullshit. I mean, I don't think that is even possible. Like your brain won't let you do that. I mean, I'm sure there's people listening to this who are like, oh yeah, well, you know, and again, I've worked long days. That's why I always hated going to an office, because are we just supposed to be sitting at our desk like working all day? That's not like a real thing. But yet the whole, you know, pre-COVID, we were completely designed to just like go into the office, look at our computer all day, and if we weren't looking at our computer all day, feel bad that we weren't actually working. I mean, it's just crazy how it's set up. It's like, how much can we actually work, like do focused work? What's the Cal Newton does the deep focus? Like do focused work a day? Like, is there any, like, what's your thought about that?
I mean, that's why I wrote the book. We're doing it all wrong because we don't know how our brain works. Right. So no, we should. Can we work? Can we use our brain? Yes. Our brain will never turn off, but we don't realize how much it'll be on autopilot and not our best work. It'll be on fear brain for most of those hours. I love the book, Dan Pink, When. So and he says we have like 3 to 4 hours at most every day of productive energy. You can lengthen that, but our brain power is a finite resource every day. So by taking breaks, by being aware that you're just like running on high and using that brain power with the fight or flight, and stopping that and pausing can extend the time, can get you into a creative state when you didn't think possible. But in the book, I have that matrix, those quadrants. And what you're talking about is either we're in survivor state where we're brain off, we're our fear mode, and we're not even engaged in what we want to do. So I call them the clock watchers, right? We're at work.
Yeah.
And then you move over. Some of us really love what we're doing and we're giving it our all, but we're brain off. We're not realizing we're burning out. I call that the warrior, right? So you can't really be healthy, thriving, and energized at work until you're both managing how you think and what you're thinking about and the emotional regulation and managing your energy or brain power. You just can't.
Well, you work with a lot of, you're a corporate, you work with a lot of corporate entities, and you've now lived through like the whole COVID thing where everybody had to go remote. And now there's kind of like this hybrid thing. What are you seeing? Are you finding that people are more productive, like sort of being out of an office setting and doing it, both ways? Or is it the same problem, like no matter what? Because your brain is your brain. You're taking it, whether you're taking it to the office or you're taking it home. What are you finding? Are people working differently now?
Well, you kind of jump to productivity, which is the lens most of our, leaders are looking at.
Yeah, right.
But we're still, what I know to be true, right, is we're still exhausted, burned out, still in trauma mode. So by having us change the way we work, whatever that is, right, or tell us how we work, what I'm seeing is our brains are already in fear mode, and that just is adding fuel to the fire. So you see that backlash of quiet quitting, which is they're feeling it and they know it, but they can't even verbal. They're just like done.
Right. I'm out.
Yeah. Or they're boomeranging, or, they go out to think the grass is greener. They come back. So it's not even a matter of productivity when we're moving to a hybrid state. It's about, does that move this new business, these new employees, this new organization forward? Because we're all different than we were 3 years ago. It's a whole new game for all of us. And so the leaders' brains are fear brain. They don't have time to really think about it. So they're defaulting to what we knew worked back then and asking more people come back. And the other side is employees are like, hey, I work better in this situation. Some don't, some do, but giving them the flexibility will then lead to being productive. I don't think until then productivity can even be managed on a legitimate scale, right? It's just back to work.
All right. You talk about brain boosters, like ways to keep your brain boosted. What are some of those that we should be aware of?
Yeah. So this gets back to energy management. So the first part is mental fitness and the cognitive and emotional RAIN, right? Managing your emotions so that you can focus, we can talk, but brain boosters is that energy we just talked about. And so I mentioned a couple, but after this, right, I've used a lot of energy, brain power and energy because I'm excited. This is a great interview. I'm thrilled to be on. I'm going to have to rest. And I blocked my calendar off knowing that for another 15 minutes. Okay. And I'm going to go outside.
Nice.
I'm not going to listen to anything.
Sorry that I've taken a lot of your brain energy. No,
that's
but I mean,
good.
It's good. It's a good thing.
That's a brain on energizer state. I want to
You're listening, you're thinking. Yeah.
I'm in flow. I'm totally brain on.
Yeah, you're on. You are good right now.
On.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I cut you off, but so you're okay. So
but I can't stay that way.
Right.
So I can't go to my 2:00 meeting, which is just as important with the same energy unless I plug in.
Yep.
So you can plug in by music, you can plug in by meditation, as you mentioned, you can plug in by taking a walk. Just don't keep, like if I would plug in by going to my phone and doing social, that drains my battery even more. So I give like 10 different ones. This has been proven. It's called the Mind Platter by Dan Siegel. You might, Dr. Dan Siegel and David Rock, all the different things that really help our brain specifically keep that energy level from not fizzling fast and burning out.
Do you remember some of them? I can't remember any.
Yeah. So no, it's exercise, it's music, it's nature, it's colors, even looking at
pretty
yellow.
colors. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Pictures, laughter is great. My daughter now has, because she was stressed in school, this is a great thing. She has a whole file of quick little pet videos or whatever that she can laugh at in 1 minute. And she sends them to me and immediately I'm more energized, right? So laughter, listening. So like your walk-up song, doesn't that put you in a good mood? Like
Yep.
We're at work here, right? So I need to be quick and thinking, even pictures of landscape. So they're very, again, simple. This isn't like brain science. It's just, I'm putting it all together. And part of that is kind of that mind platter. Part of it comes from Johnson & Johnson Human Performance.
What is that?
So they are a performance institute all around helping humans perform better, be their best. And they're all about energy management, hydration, nutrition. They do blood draws thinking like, how do we get your protein balanced, your electrolyte, like all of that, plus your mindset, right, with nature and things, teaches meditation so that you can become high performing. So Brain Boosters is like that high performance protein drink, but for your brain.
Interesting. Well, what about diet? I don't, was there a lot? I don't think there was so much diet stuff in your book. I can't remember, but
yeah,
you
I
stayed away from that.
Away from that. Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, there's
well,
books that you can read about, brain boosting food. So, there's plenty of stuff written about that.
Yeah, I chose just to focus on the scientific evidence on keeping your brain power, your energy level, at work alive. And I didn't know if everybody would have access to like walnuts and
right.
almonds.
So it's all about being at work. And the same with fitness, right? Like you're not, there's no fitness because it's not like there's a Peloton. Although at my workplace, which is my home, there is a Peloton bike, 20 feet
Which is
away.
great. Right. And I'm in well-being. So I know to incorporate exercise. Exercise is a brain booster and is just gently managed. But this really is like, what can you do in the moment? What do you have to really be mindful of? And that's your energy levels.
All right. So when I hang up the phone with you, so the things that I need to do, because I know my instinct is going to be right to get back into my Facebook hell that I was just in.
I know.
And I know I need to manage that. So one thing I don't want people to go away thinking is that like, it's all great and dandy all the time, and all you need to do is breathe, and get out of your fear brain.
We
right?
don't want that.
Because a lot of life is just managing this stuff. It doesn't go away, No,
it's normal. That stuff will always be there. What we want them to know is there's a way to pause it and add more joy and focus and creativity in your life, even though our brain is programmed so old. Like that's what that stuff, our days are going to be up and down. That's normal.
And the other thing that is normal is that it's normal to feel anxiety. And like you said, we're programmed to feel, and without it, humans wouldn't be humans. We wouldn't have survived, first of all.
Right.
The bears would have eaten us.
My house might have burned down if I literally didn't. I can't wait to look at my face for that first second, right?
Right. Like, what is that?
It told me to hightail it out in 1 second.
Yeah. All right. The book is called Brain On. It has a subtitle, which I don't have it in front of me. Brain On. What is
Mental fitness strategies for more focus, connection, joy, productivity, and ultimately helping you win your workday.
It's a really good book. It just sort of distills a lot of information that I've been, considering and reading about. And I love that you kind of put it all in one place. And I think we all could learn a lot from it. So Deb Smolensky, thank you for joining us. If people want to find out more about you, what should they do?
DebSmolensky.com or find me on LinkedIn. That's where I do all my creative writing and distilling daily life with the brain on.
Terrific. Well, okay, I'm going to hang up and look out the window at the birds.
Me too.
You too?
Don't go back to Facebook just for 1 minute. I know it's going to be really hard.
No Facebook.
Really hard.
Okay. Well, I can do it. No Slack either. Slack is another real hard one for me.
No electronic.
No electronics. All right. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about the technical difficulties, but it's cool. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Right About Now, hosted by my dad, Jonathan Small. If you like what you heard, there are a few ways you can help support the show. First, please leave a rating and review wherever you may listen to this podcast. This really helps others find Right About Now. You can also head over to patreon.com/rightaboutnowpodcast to make a donation. Finally, subscribe to the Right About Now newsletter called Small Talk on substack.com. This is Ella, encouraging you all to do the right thing.